Hello and welcome in, and a good afternoon. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is the Matt Murphy Show. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. We have a severe weather nastiness moving through the area right now. I just drove through it, as a matter of fact, from Mount Juliet into Nashville, and it's nasty on the roadways. Just be aware of that as we come on the air, and we're broadcasting all day long throughout the day, covering the weather for you, and we'll keep you comfortable, safe, and sound as best we possibly can all throughout the day. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I mentioned my name is Matt Murphy. It's Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. It's our episode 544 of the proceedings that we enjoy from a day-to-day basis. Let's get underway by reminding you that you can listen to us both on the radio. You can also listen to us and download our app. Take our app wherever you go in your smartphone technology or whatever you happen to be using, laptop, that sort of thing. You can do that and stay weather aware. That way, you could also enjoy us on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Super Talk TV is up and running per usual, and you can see my ugly face right there on your televisions if you so desire. You will not see Bell K. He chooses not to participate on the television side of things, which is why we call him Headless Bell with a fair amount of regularity. But he does title them, and today's episode 544, let's just go ahead and get into it, is entitled,
Matt Murphy suggests presidential elections adopt the Miss America pageant model. 50 choices.
Each from a state?
Sure.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
I appreciate that you're acting like it's the first time you've ever heard it.
Oh, yeah, I should be consistent with the theme. Yeah, it's my idea, so of course it's not a bad idea. I'm a little sluggish. I stayed up too late last night.
Some of the ideas that I've given you,
I know.
Have been
it's
your
not a bad. I mean, yeah, the ideas that you give me credit for, but they're actually your ideas. But you give me credit for it and claim that they're my ideas, but they're actually pretty good ideas. I kind of like it. Each state select their candidate of their choosing, and it's kind of like what we used to do. I mean, way back
California wins every time.
Well, it's probably California or Texas, New York, one of those big states. I remember growing up I've always hated beauty pageants. I've always thought they were silly.
Boring.
I mean, yeah. I mean, when there's nothing else on and grandma wants to watch it, that's what you watch, and there you go. I admit, I was a little bit fascinated with what we didn't see. Even when I was a kid, I recognized, and this, I will make the comparison between beauty pageants, which you just brought up, and politicians and politics generally. It's what you don't see under the surface of the water that's really intriguing. And what you don't see in beauty pageants, you don't see you only saw like the final 10 talent competitions. And I remember being a kid, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, watching these things on television and I remember wondering, what did the other 40 or whatever do that didn't make it? Like, how bad were they? What are they doing? Spinning plates? What are they doing over there? Although spinning plates would be pretty good.
That takes skill,
actually.
Baby.
And now that I think about it, do we need another singer? Oh, my God. Here she comes with the violin. Boo, boo, boo.
She was going to do magic, but her birds are dead.
But she's smoking hot in that swimsuit. So let's just let it go. Anyway, no swimsuits today. I mean, there's a lot of nastiness going around from a weather perspective, and we'll try to keep you as aware as we can. You just heard Ken Weaver there in the newsroom, and we appreciate him sticking around for a little extended duty. And we've got it covered from the newsroom perspective all afternoon long, and obviously from our perspective here in our studios in downtown Nashville, just off of Music Row in beautiful Music City. So just suffice it to say that if you're within the sound of my voice, from Alabama to Kentucky and all points in between, you're under a tornado watch, not a tornado warning. Let's go over the distinction for those of you in Aniana. A tornado watch means
you're looking for one.
No,
it could happen.
No. Well, it could happen. That's right. That's right.
A warning is you found one.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, I see where you're going there. That's good. Yeah. I've been of the belief for some time now that because of modern radar technology, we should have a third distinction for tornadic events. And I'm being serious here. A tornado watch simply means that the National Weather Service has determined that conditions are as favorable as they're going to get for the possibility of tornadoes. We don't know when a tornado will happen, obviously, but we do know when conditions are favorable for the occurrence. And a watch indicates that the conditions are favorable enough that they want us to be aware of what's going on. In other words, be on the lookout. A warning means something's going down, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a tornado is on the ground. I know most of you know this, but I think I need to go over it one more time for the kids in the back of the class that probably aren't listening. So warnings mean one of two things now. Warnings mean that either a tornado has been sighted and is on the ground, and that's obviously the most dangerous type of situation, or they have what is called a radar-indicated tornado, meaning that there's a debris signature or they're watching the circulation of what seems to be a tornado on their radar technology, the various radar technologies that exist that are so incredible and fascinating. I mean, we truly do live in amazing times. Not to date myself, but I mean, when you and I were growing up, Belle, they just threw something out there. Hey, a tornado watch for today. And your tornado warning was a siren outside and you hearing something that sounded like a big old choo-choo train.
Yeah, and there was one of those sirens was literally in my backyard when I lived out in Hendersonville. There's this big, gigantic green water tower.
Bet that was fun.
Up on the Saunders Ferry, Walton Ferry Peninsula. And they would test that thing like the first Saturday of every month.
That early or late or what?
9 a.m.
Oh, you were in bed.
I was up watching cartoons, but I hated it because it would wake my parents up, and then I had to deal with them.
Oh, well, you lose your cartoons when you wake your parents up.
Yeah.
You know, when we lost cartoons when I was a kid? When Soul Train came on. I developed a hatred for Soul Train, an unnatural
Don
hatred.
Cornelius loves you.
No, I did. I mean, I didn't mind it. For what it's worth, I didn't watch much of it, but Soul Train... What Soul Train meant to me was that cartoons were over for another week, and I hated it. But I'll never forget.
Was it your grandmother that wanted to watch Soul Train?
Nobody wanted to watch Soul Train. We were watching cartoons. Cartoons lasted until whatever it was, 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. And Soul Train...
so Soul Train came on when they were over. It wasn't okay.
Soul Train came on right after cartoons. So when you saw the cartoon train, ironically enough, it was a cartoon train. It's the Soul Train. Boo. Time to go outside. Play. Well, hopefully we will not hear any trains today. We will keep you up to date as to the weather situation as best we can. We've got team coverage out of the Super Talk 99.7 WTN newsroom. I know that Brian Wilson over in beautiful Watertown is alert and ready to go this afternoon from 3 until 7, and he and I have been in communication. He says that if and when necessary, he's here to jump in. I indicated that if and when necessary, I am here for him as well once he takes over hosting duties at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So it's what we do. I mean, look, we're not here to scare heck out of you. We're not here. You're all grown. You understand where you live. You understand what happens this time of year. You all get it. At the same time, we want to make sure that everyone's aware. So for you long-term listeners, for those of you who tune in, and God love you, for those of you who tune in early in the morning, and, you know, I call them all-dayers. You listen all day through Nashville's Morning News, Chris Hand, Matt Murphy, Brian Wilson. You're probably going to hear a generous regurgitation of the same information regarding the weather. Just understand that there are people that are coming in. I mean, I understand you'll go, you've told us that 1,000 times now. Why are you telling us that again? Well, I don't think you sound like that, by the way. Now, your neighbor, maybe. Point being is that there are people coming and going. Obviously, a lot of folks at work right now. Maybe they're out on their lunch break trying to figure out what's going on with the weather, when they maybe should pack it up and get on home in advance of some of the other nasty stuff expected to come in a little bit later on this afternoon. The expectation is that we'll have a couple of waves of this, and some of the nastiness is expected sometime between 3 and 5 this afternoon. And once again, we'll keep you up to date on everything you need to know. Luckily, I think a lot of businesses have become keenly aware of best practices when it comes to these types of things. And many of those said businesses, ours included at Cumulus Nashville, have decided to just make their employees aware of getting home safe and sound in advance of the weather. I went through during the 11 o'clock hour. I left a little bit early, not as early as I wanted to, and went through some hail and nastiness. There was just a big old line of storms. That line of storms has actually gotten over to, it's drifting through like Gladeville right now. There's a big old blob of red that's just east of Gallatin. And Lebanon, you've got green. So there's rain going on, but you don't have the heaviest of the rain. The heaviest of the rain is along the 840 corridor south of I-40 and north of, Smyrna? We'll say Smyrna. So there you go. There's the weather update from the News Talk guy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We've lots of other matters to cover for you. Not the least of which, the fact that Donald Trump has now posted a $175 million bond in New York City in his civil fraud trial. Good for him. You're not seeing as much coverage about this on the mainstream media liberal networks like ABC, CBS, NBC, the rest of the alphabet soups. Hashtag never CNN. I call it hashtag never CNN because it's a garbage network full of garbage folks spewing out, garbage. I watch as an occupational hazard so you don't have to. I did enjoy a portion of CNN programming last evening, as I'm certain that many of their viewers, leftists all, it seems, were left in slack-jawed amazement that there are people considering themselves Democrats that talk differently than other leftists in their circles. I'm speaking specifically of Robert Kennedy Jr., who gave a very interesting interview. Is Robert Kennedy Jr. difficult to listen to for anyone else because of his voice? And I don't begrudge him his voice. I mean, obviously, it is what it is. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just being honest with you. It is sometimes difficult for me to listen to Robert Kennedy Jr. because it sounds like, and I don't know that it feels this way, and he's probably spoken on it from time to time, it sounds like what's happening with him hurts. Doesn't it? So sometimes it's difficult for me to get through the voice and hear what he has to say, a lot of which I like. Some of which I absolutely don't like. The most appealing aspect of Robert Kennedy Jr., the most appealing aspect of what he is doing, shaking up the political dynamic as we really begin the 2024 election cycle in earnest. We've got our players, friends. Maybe there are a few others to shake out of all of this. We got to figure out who the VP selection is going to be for Donald Trump. We feel like we know that they are stuck, the Democrats, with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I don't know. I have long believed that they would move off that. They would move off that train and find something different. It does not seem that they have the ability to do so. There's the Kennedy dynamic that upsets the apple cart to a certain degree, and I think it impacts negatively Democrats more than it impacts Trump, although it might impact Trump because there's a segment of voters that might lean Trump that will go Kennedy. I think those voters are still angry about COVID-19 and what was known as the pandemic, and they're very frustrated about the government's willingness and desire and demand that we all get damn vaccinated.
Well, you got to remember, I think Joe's right about one thing, and democracy is on the ballot. So that RFK needs to drop out so that we can save democracy by having less choice.
Right.
And yes, I am being sarcastic, people.
No, I get it. I'm glad you brought that up, though. You and I think in simpatico in some ways. I wrote this down this morning because I heard, who was it? Aaron Burnett of CNN that was interviewing him.
I leave CNN to you like you have instructed me to.
Well, it's probably for the best. Sorry, I just got distracted. I just saw that the Joe Flaherty, you know Joe Flaherty? I think he was a Canadian. He was on SCTV, was on Happy Gilmore. I just got a newsflash that he died. That distracted me. Squirrel. What do you think that means? Liberals have fallen in love with this phrase since Donald Trump came about. What do you think it means? Democracy is on the ballot. It infuriates me. But it's one of the central topics that I wanted to discuss today. I think this is a strong indicator that oftentimes the political left will pretend to be against that which they are engaged in. There's something psychological about it. They think everyone else thinks the way that they think. And they don't like democracy very much, certainly some of the results that they've had lately. Primarily, I'm thinking of the result that happened in 2016. And since then, they've been telling us repeatedly, ad nauseum, that democracy is on the ballot. Democracy, they say, is on the ballot. What does that mean? Sincerely. What do you think they mean by that? I don't understand what it means. I genuinely do not know what they mean. Democracy is the ballot. Now, anytime we have this discussion, we have to talk about democracy and the definition of that word, and I know how much so many of you hate it. I understand how so many of you hate it because you insist that it's a liberal word and that we are a representative republic. And we are a representative republic. You could also call us a constitutional republic if you so desire. And I don't have any desire to fight with you about it because there's no need. America is a form of democracy. Oh, yes, we are. And if you think we're not, I mean, I hate to be this way, but you're wrong. You're wrong. We are. You want us to be, I don't mean to speak for you, but I think I've done this enough that I've got it figured out. You want us to be more specific with what type of democracy we're talking about because there's two basic forms. There's direct democracy, which we hate, and rightly so. That's the rule of the mob. And there's indirect democracy, which we are a form of. Constitutional republics abide by the rule of law, not by the will of the mob. Direct democracies don't really work. And we figured that out pretty early on in the democratic cycle because there are a lot of knuckleheads that live around here. And those knuckleheads, they can't figure it out. They can't find their butts with a flashlight and a compass. And so you even out the edges through a constitutional or representative republic. You even out the edges. You soften the edges of some of those on the fringes by electing representation to go act in your stead as your proxy. That's what a representative republic is. Or a constitutional republic. But ultimately, I don't think democracy is a bad word like some have decided that it is. I don't allow liberals to steal the language away from me, and I'm not going to start. That said, our founding fathers created what was a form of an indirect democracy. And I wonder how many of us truly want to keep it. I do. I think you do as well. I don't think liberals do. They scream their words so loudly in an effort to overcome their actions. Let's talk about that next because I want to know what you think they mean when they say democracy is on the ballot. I have two examples that I'm going to pull together that seem like they have nothing to do with one another to illustrate my point. It's 12:25. By the way, Senator Marsha Blackburn coming up as weather allows at 2:05 this afternoon. We'll continue to cover the weather for you on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Well, it's very exciting happenings over at Mill Creek View, Tennessee. By now, you may have heard that Mill Creek, Tennessee is now, or Mill Creek View, I should say, Tennessee, is now known as Heartland Journal. Heartland Journal presents Mill Creek View, Tennessee, and the incredible podcast that they have ongoing. Steve Abramowitz had so good at his job, and as a matter of fact, it just dropped yesterday, episode 190. It's yours truly, Matt Murphy, with our Murphy's Law podcast. It's a once-a-month presentation, but Steve is on every single day. Entertainment, culture, artists, pop figures. I mean, if we're talking about it in Middle Tennessee, if we're talking about it in the heartland of America, Steve Abramowitz and his team, they're talking about it as well. So Mill Creek View, Tennessee has now become Heartland Journal, and Heartland Journal presents Mill Creek View, Tennessee, and their incredible podcast. They still have their website up and running, mcview.us. That's mcview.us for all things Mill Creek View, to include my brand new drop, my brand new podcast. Go and look at Heartland Journal and Mill Creek View, Tennessee. Craft Body Scan wants to see you, friends. Let's talk about what they do, what they provide, how long they've been in town, and how long they've been doing what they do. So since 2017, when Craft Body Scan opened their doors around the Southeast, they began offering CT scans to the general public in a way that helps them figure out what's going on in their body even before you can feel it. Now, obviously, if you've noticed symptoms inside of your body, you want to make sure that you understand what's going on. We're talking to your heart, your lungs, and other parts of your body, and they can discuss all of the various options for you when you stop by Craft Body Scan or schedule an appointment. What they want to impart upon you is the importance of getting that information very quickly before you even notice symptoms. As a result of that, they want to introduce themselves to you by their $149 special. And here's what that means. Typically, a heart and lung scan is roughly about a $1,300 value or just above. Right now, they're offering that not only for you, but for a loved one for $149. They open their doors, state-of-the-art facilities. It's incredible. It's non-invasive. It takes about 8 minutes. You don't even have to take your clothes off. You know, just take keys out of your pocket and off you go. You'll get a consultation prior to the visit, and you don't have to be referred in any way. You just have to make the call to Craft Body Scan that many others have made. Get that peace of mind tonight by making that appointment today with Craft Body Scans. Spell Craft with a C, craftbodyscan.com, or call 615-436-1000, 436-1000. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you. You know, it's that time of year, friends. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling want to make sure that you have your AC maintenance up and running and ready to go, whether you've used it or not yet this year, and many of you have. I mean, after all, we've gotten them to about 80-degree afternoons. You've probably noticed that smell if you've not had it maintenance. Well, that smell is an indicator that it's been sitting idle for a while, and you got a lot of dust and dander that has settled on the AC, on the coils, etc. We need to get that cleaned out. We need to get that maintenance. We need to make sure that everything's running as it should. You know, I like to compare it to your teeth because people can kind of understand that, right? I mean, you get your teeth maintenance to once every 6 months or so, right? You go to the dentist. He gets them cleaned up. He checks everything out, or she checks them everything out and makes sure that everything's, A-OK. Well, it's the same thing with your AC. I mean, that's an expensive piece of equipment in your house. You want to make sure that it's up and running and it's going to get maximum life. That's what it's all about. When it comes time now, they're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and Elite Pro partner with Rheem. And, oh, by the way, it'll never cost you more than $125 to have a maintenance call on your AC unit, no matter where you are and no matter how many units you have. That's a Jeff Eddy commitment to you. EfficientHVAC.net, EfficientHVAC.net, or 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Did you know that you can lose about 50% of your hair before you notice it? My hair was thinning just a little bit as normal. around the crown of my head, around the top of my head, and I wanted to do something about it before it got worse. And so I talked to the good people at We Grow Hair. They're the best in the business. I mean, they've been around for almost 30 years. They have experience exclusively in hair restoration. You can restore your hair the right way right now by calling 615-376-6010. And don't fret. I'm going to give you that number one more time. I'm getting their FDA-approved laser treatments, which make sure that your hair is as thick and as full as it possibly can be, and it prevents further hair loss. Whether you're just beginning to lose your hair, or you've been losing your hair, or you're simply wanting to work a preventative maintenance schedule for your hair, We Grow Hair is the only clinic in Nashville with all of the proven medical solutions, and they also have their trademark procedure, their multi-unit hair grafting procedure. I went through the paces of learning about this. It's incredible. It's the Artis Robotic FUE transplant procedure. Results are simply guaranteed, and I say that with a period behind it. Results are guaranteed. Call We Grow Hair for a free consultation and learn about their affordable financing options with some of their programs. 615-376-6010, 615-376-6010, or WeGrowHair.com. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, monitoring the weather, making sure that we're keeping you up to date with everything going on in that regard. Also monitoring our members' nutrition super text line, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. You're invited to be a part of the show by joining in on the members' nutrition super text line or giving us a call at those same numbers. I give those numbers often and as quickly as possible, just to keep you on your toes. I asked the question because I hear this a lot since 2016, really since 2015, when the mainstream media begun to take Donald Trump rather seriously, and really that did not happen. You know, as my memory serves me, I would suggest that happened in 2016 when he started winning primary after primary, and there was a recognition as other Republicans began dropping out that Donald Trump would be the eventual nominee. The mainstream media, the leftist mainstream media, but I repeat myself, they slowly but surely accepted that he would be the nominee, and they thought it was a clown show. It really wasn't until he was elected that they began to take all of this very seriously, and that's when they told us that Donald Trump had colluded with the Russians, that Donald Trump was a Russian super agent, that, you know, he went from clown show to super agent like that, right? Why? Because he won. That's democracy, using their language. That's democracy. Democracy was the ballot, not on the ballot, the ballot. And the democratic process was successful for us. But now they're saying it more and more and more. They said it in 2020. They're saying it again. Democracy's on the ballot. In my adult lifetime, I've not heard this phrase played out like it has been playing out over the last several years. And so I'm curious what you think that means. I don't know that I know. I have some ideas, and many of you do as well. Jeff says when they say democracy's on the ballot, they're saying it can't exist unless the Democrats win. That's pretty well said. 1992 writes in and says, the democracy thing is newspeak. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Democracy's on the ballot. Save democracy. Democracy is the cudgel they bludgeon all opponents with. Well spoken. 4254 says they want direct democracy. The left wants to get rid of the Electoral College. California and New York then get to elect our president. That is well spoken as well. Tom says, seems like direct democracy is trying to be played out right now. Yeah, they would prefer that because they believe that there are far more idiots than there are smart people in America. And sadly, I think they might be right. And with direct democracy, the idiocracy can vote themselves from the largesse of government. Ultimately, as Margaret Thatcher put it, all of this works out. Socialism works just fine until you run out of other people's money, which is what they want. And I have a few examples of what I mean by that. But I don't want to get in front of you. Sherman has called in on the Libertarian Lunch on the Murphy Show. Hey, Sherman, how are you?
I'm doing good.
I'm glad to hear it, Sherman. What's on your mind?
Well, I read an article about 2 or 3 weeks ago about 20-plus states have changed the way they award their Electoral College, that they're going to award it to the national vote getter and not their state vote getter.
Right.
So I thought it was always whoever won the state got either all or a portion of the Electoral College, not, let's say, Michigan, Trump wins, but the national vote getter was Biden, so they award it to Biden.
I don't know. No, I don't think that's accurate. What you're saying, I don't believe is accurate. I'll need to look up the specifics of it. I think there was a movement to prevent liberals. I mean, and I understand the movement that you're talking about, and I can't think of the details right now off the top of my head, but I don't think it's accurate that states that Trump would win are moving to overturn the will of the individual states in question to create a de facto national election. I don't believe that's happening, but I need to find out the details on that, Sherman, because I vaguely know what you're talking about, but I don't know the specifics off the top of my head.
Yeah. I thought I read an article about 2 or 3 weeks ago that said there was 20-plus states already enacted.
No. Where did you read this article? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I don't think that's accurate. I'm confident of this, Sherman, that and I don't doubt that you read an article like that, but I'm confident that if 20-plus states had decided to go to a national election process, I would be aware of that. And I know that there was a move afoot in liberal states to shore up how they did their business. I know that there were some liberal states that were talking about doing this early on, but they recognized that it would only be the liberal states that did it. None of the conservative states were going to do it. And for them, it doesn't work to create a national election cycle if every state doesn't involve itself. And it doesn't work if they can't turn red states blue. So I know that was going on some months ago, but I don't know what the aftermath was on it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to have to research it a little bit more, but could have swore I read that. So.
Well, let me know what you find out, my friend.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you. But I do. Currently, we have an electoral college. Currently, that electoral college is made up of 538, I think it is. It's not 535. 535 is the number of total senators and representatives, but I think there's 3 extra for the District of Columbia. And it's 538 because in order to win, you have to have 270. That would make sense. But I do not believe that's been enacted as of yet. In the meantime, weather situation continues to move through the city of Nashville, through Middle Tennessee. We're monitoring that weather situation. Also, 2266 says the radio signal is going in and out of y'all's station. Obviously, we are in some ways weather dependent on the on-air signal at 99.7 FM. I would suggest to you that there are a variety, more ways than ever before to listen to what we do on Supertalk 99.7 WTN. So if the weather is causing any sort of signal issues where you are, 2266, or any of you, I would encourage you to look up our app, Supertalk 99.7 WTN. The app is up and running. You can also find us on a variety of streaming applications. You know, Spotify is one of them. iHeart's one of them. There are many, many others. Just type in Supertalk 99.7 WTN and go where you're going. And you can also look at us on Supertalk TV for those who want to look at my ugly mug for 3 hours. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. That's up and running as we speak. Bobby's next in Nashville. Hey, Bobby. How are you?
Hey, I'd like to let you guys know you're doing a fabulous job, man.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah, we know who the threat to democracy is that fellow that's in office right now, the man, Joe Biden. I can tell you this, my 401k plan's been going downhill ever since he took office. And the reason they don't like Trump is because when Trump did get in office, you know yourself that he put a stop to all the ones making these secret deals behind the scenes like the Pelosi's and all of them. But the real Russian spy, not the Russian spy, I'm sorry to say, but the Chinese spy that we need to look out for is Hunter Biden. And for all of your listeners out there, Russia is not your threat. China is your threat. So I just wanted to get that in. Thanks, man.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's no question that the long-term geopolitical threat that we face as a country is China. China has the ability to work a slow game, and they use our power of the democratic process against us. In as much as they have their thumb on their people, they do not truly believe in individual rights or individual freedoms. As a result, they do not have to worry about the whims of the voting population, as do political parties here in the United States, and obviously as do political candidates. So when President Xi is talking to Joe Biden this morning, apparently they had some sort of communication. They haven't spoken since 2022. Xi can play the long game because he doesn't have to worry about an election this year. All Joe Biden does worry about is the election this year. It is one of the beauties of the democratic process, but it also creates a dynamic by which we have to work harder than they do, because they have the benefit of subjugating the general population. By them, I mean the Red Chinese. And that creates an economic advantage for the Red Chinese. I've long said we're all complicit in it. If you want to know Matt Murphy's take on the American relationship with China, it is basically a drug user, drug dealer relationship. It is. We would not be friends with the Chinese if we were not addicted to what the Chinese give us. I don't know if you've ever had an experience in your life where you knew anyone that had an addiction, or if you yourself felt like, you were a little too addicted to whatever it might be, alcohol, tobacco. I mean, I was a drug user for a long time. I guess technically, because I still drink a little bit of the brown water, you could call me a drug user right now. But for 17 years of my life, I was a regular drug user. I was addicted to drugs. I smoked cigarettes. Now, I know that you cigarette smokers out there in the audience don't want to hear it, but you're druggies, you're drug users. And you're addicted to your drugs. Well, the drug user, drug dealer relationship exists because of the drug, not because of the friendship or the bonds that are created, for goodness sake. And if you find yourself fortunate enough, or you work hard enough that you break the addictive cycle and you get off the drugs, guess where you visit a lot less? If it's alcohol, you're not going to the liquor store like you should, or like you used to, rather. Freudian slip. If it was a Freudian slip. Like you should. Get on out to the liquor store, says Matt Murphy. Smoke them if you got them, says Matt. You're not going to the liquor store like you used to if you break your addictive cycle. You don't you don't stop by the convenience store just to look at the cigarettes or just to talk to the people selling them, do you? Our relationship with China exists because we are addicted to the slave labor that makes those Chinese products that are sold so cheaply in American stores all across this great land. Now, I'm not knocking it. Look, I'm lying if I didn't tell you that half the crap in my house was made in China, too. I am aware of it, though, and awareness is the first step in tackling the larger battle. And the only way we do that, we sit around and we wait on our politicians. We sit around and we wait on a white knight to ride in on a white horse and save us from the evil red Chinese. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to save ourselves. The only salvation that we have against the Chinese is to stop the drug use that exists in this country with regard to their products. Now, that's tough love, but it's true. If you want to win the battle against our greatest geopolitical foe, stop buying their crap. And that means that you have to pay a little more for it. That means that we have to ramp up American manufacturing again. I mean, imagine the thought. That's my take on the Red Chinese and the battle that we face from a geopolitical perspective on the Red Chinese. What does democracy mean to you? What does it mean when the left says democracy's on the ballot? I'm going to tie this together with what has recently happened in the state of California. Fast food, hamburgers are going up in price quite a bit in California. I'll tell you why next. It's 1250 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. There was standing water on I-40 as I drove in today. Standing water. That made me think of USS, United Structural Systems. I don't think they do interstates, but if they did, they'd have that problem solved really quickly. You know, if you have standing water in your home, it's not a joking matter. It's not a laughing matter. It's very serious. Standing water can cause issues. Health concerns, absolutely. Standing waters in crawl spaces can also cause structural concerns as well, perhaps wood rot. Your house is trying to tell you something, folks. If you've got hardwood floors that look funny, if you've got cracks in your basement floors or your basement walls, if you have musty odors, if you have rot in your floor joists, which has always been easy for me to say, or if you've got standing water in your crawl space, you might have water. You don't might. You've got waterproofing issues. You need to call USS. Call the best. USS, United Structural Systems, since 1994. They've been helping customers just like you. Over 25,000 satisfied customers have given the thumbs up when it comes to United Structural Systems and the way that they do their business. They'll get out, they're problem solvers, they'll take care of business at a low cost to you, and they'll move on from there. It's United Structural Systems. Let's protect that largest investment in your life, your home that does so much to protect you. USSTN.com, that's USSTN.com, or give a call today at 615-488-7855, 488-7855 for USS. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you until 3. Brian Wilson after that with The Drive. Really team coverage all day long as we're anticipating some nasty weather that continues to move through the state of Tennessee, affecting the roadways. Obviously, we're under a tornado watch till at least 3 o'clock this afternoon. That simply means no tornadoes have been sighted. That simply means that tornadoes are possible in our area. A tornado warning would indicate that either radar has indicated a tornado or that someone has seen a tornado on the ground. I did not pay this off, but I should. The third distinction that I would like to see, and we're really kind of moving toward this, now radar has gotten so incredible that even before a tornado gets to the ground, even before a tornado begins doing damage, there can be a wind and a signature, that hook echo signature that we hear about quite often when we're listening to meteorologists describe this. If we are going to begin calling those tornado warnings, we don't want to cry wolf too often. That's good. That's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to have the technology in 2024 at our fingertips that give us the ability to tell people, hey, you know, those of you out there in Aniana or wherever you are, Mount Juliet, Ashland City, Columbia, Spring, whatever it might be. You've got something coming toward you, and this looks like a tornado right now, and we're just letting you know. We don't know if it's on the ground or not, but we're looking at it on radar, and this looks bad, and you might want to get in your safe place. That's good. But if we created that third distinction, and I would classify it as a tornado emergency, so tornado watch, tornado warning, tornado emergency. Tornado watch. Conditions are favorable. You know, we don't know what's going to happen, but over the next 24 hours, look out. Tornado warning. That can be radar indicated or otherwise. Tornado emergency. There is a tornado on the ground, and it is coming toward you. See the difference? Dallas writes in and says it's all about the ratings. Well, certainly live programming sells and weather sells. I get it. They would not do it if people did not watch, and people do. They're very concerned about the weather. Part of the reason we're concerned about the weather, that there's nothing that we can do. Everybody talks about the weather, Bell. Nobody does anything about it. We're going to do something about this newscast and get beyond it into hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hang in there. I've been speaking about Dr. Stephen Poss and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center for quite some time now. 2 locations to serve you. One is in Murfreesboro, the other in Brentwood. I've recently become a client. More on that in just a moment. If you think that you might have sleep apnea, let's find out with a sleep test. And if you do have sleep apnea, you know, there are ways to settle this, to solve this, to help this without having to concern yourself with a CPAP machine. And it's in your medical network, meaning that Dr. Poss takes Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, and TRICARE for the military. That's nice to know. It's also nice to know that you don't have to worry about a CPAP machine if you do have sleep apnea. I recently realized that I had mild to moderate sleep apnea. Dr. Poss was asking me a few questions. I was touring the facility. We were talking about advertising and talking about things that he wanted to focus on, and he started talking about me. Well, it turns out that while I do not snore that much, I do have sleep apnea. I went through my sleep test, and now I have an appliance from Dr. Poss, and I got to tell you, I'm getting better sleep at night. I feel more rested in the morning. It works, friends. Sleep matters, and it matters to your partner as well. If you snore throughout the night, you're causing problems with your partner too. So let's get with Dr. Poss at drposs.com. It's the easiest way to do things. drposs.com, drposs.com. And tell them Matt Murphy sent you to Brentwood or Murfreesboro for Dr. Poss and the Sleep Apnea and TMJ Solution Center. Here we are, and here we go. It's hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The weather must be getting nasty because I'm seeing Mason. That's a strong indication that the weather's bad out there. All right, it's our hour number 2, but all day long throughout Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis, the Chris Hand Show, Matt Murphy, and even beyond my show at 3 o'clock with Brian Wilson and The Drive. We are carefully, with one eye, monitoring the situation regarding the weather. Look, nothing we can do about it. We're not here to scare you. We're simply here to report the news. And the news is this. We're under a tornado watch throughout the course of the day. That means that conditions are favorable for pop-up tornadoes. We're going to have a lot of rain, some localized flooding. We've already seen some of that. We had a big system move through, about 2 hours ago. A little bit of a respite in downtown Nashville right now, although more rain coming. As is typical, this is coming from the southwest to the northeast, and the entire line is moving west to east, right? But inside the line, it's moving kind of in a northeasterly pattern. Right now, you've got a lot of rain in South Tennessee between, if you're familiar with this area, between Savannah and Lawrenceburg along the, 64, I think it is. Just south of Hohenwald. Hohenwald's getting a lot of rain right now, too, that you folks down there in Hohenwald. But that's all green on my map as I'm looking on my radar map, on my handy-dandy map, on my handy-dandy phone. Dixon, you're getting popped as well. Right now, no rain in downtown Nashville. We are just abreast Music Row. And right here at the dead end on Music Row, we're not seeing rain. Really nowhere inside of the loop right now, although rain is certainly coming. The big storm that popped Nashville earlier is now north of Cookeville, and it's heading on very swiftly toward Kentucky. So a new round is coming in the next several hours. Heavy rainfall. I mean, look, you know the deal. I'm not here to over-explain the point. Heavy rainfall, lightning, maybe some hail, localized flooding, and yes, the possibility exists for a tornado. Keep it right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. For all of your weather needs, and otherwise, we'll keep you up to date. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number. If you'd like to be involved in the show, you can call us up or hit us up on the Members Nutrition Super Text line. I like to say we give that number often and as quickly as possible just to keep you on your toes. 615-737-9986. Dallas writes in and says it's partly sunny and 82 degrees in Tampa. Good luck, Nashville. You know what we should do? Because we have so many people that listen online on their apps, and God bless you for doing so. I feel thankful that I have a collection of my, what should we call them? My Burmites, Burmites would be pretty good.
Burmites.
Yeah, they're listeners from Birmingham that I carried up here to Nashville. Got to find a name for them.
I think we just call them all Murphy maniacs and leave it at that.
How about Murphy Minions?
No, that's talking down to them.
They're subservient to me. They're my minions. Wouldn't you want a minion? Have you watched that show? Have you watched Despicable Me? Have we talked about this? I feel like we have.
This is not a cartoon.
What do you mean this is not a cartoon? It's real life.
This is real life.
Yeah, but if it were a cartoon, wouldn't you want a minion or two? They're cute. Squeeze them. They run around helping you do evil stuff. No?
I'd probably go to Boogie Nights for something like that.
Wait a minute. Boogie Nights?
Yeah.
Wait, you want to be Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights?
No, I'm talking about the women. Get me one of those.
Well, you want to be one of the women in Boogie Nights?
No, you're not listening.
I'm trying. Well,
no, you're not.
No, you're not listening. You're the woman in this scenario.
Oh, my God.
I don't know I don't know what you mean when you say you want to be in Boogie Nights.
No, I want to get one of the women from Boogie Nights.
I don't think
I would get a minion, but
I don't think you do. Those women come with complications.
Which one doesn't?
Complications. Burmites is a perfect name for the people from Alabama, says 8335. Thank you. Thank you for having my back. Unlike Bal.
I have had your back so many times, it's not even funny.
Murphian, Murphite, whatever. Angie says she loves the Minion movies, and I do too. I think all of them are good. It's a nice little cartoon escapism. Burmites. What do you get when
Well, for that matter, so is heavy metal.
The 8335 says, what do you get when you put 32 Alabamians in the same room? You get a set of teeth. Thank you.
Tried and true.
Thank you. My old one was, and this comes from a guy that worked there. What has 9 teeth and 5 boobs? Third shift at Waffle House. Ouch. Former member of the team, former grill operator. I'm proud graduate of WU, Waffle House University. Burmite sounds like something you go to the clinic for. Yes, exactly. And then Dallas wants me to shave my head. No, Sally wants me to shave my head so I look like Gru. I'll take it under advisement. One way or the other, we've got a lot of Burmites that listen. We should get people to dial into the Members Nutrition Super Text line and tell us what the weather is like where they're listening, because I know we have people that listen all over the country, nay, all over the world. 3225 is betting that you're talking about Roller Girl, Belle. Roller Girl.
No. Talking about Heather Graham and Boogie Nights, people.
Yeah,
Wake up.
That's Roller Girl. Heather Graham was Roller Girl.
Oh, yes. Okay.
No, that 3425's got your back and you're yelling at him. That's my job.
I'm yelling at you.
Oh, that's also my job. Okay, we'll keep you up to date with the weather. We remain weather aware today, as I hope that you do as well. Remember our discussion about World War II? And I was telling you that how honor flight was a big part of my life, and I was so proud to be a very, very teeny part of Honor Flight Birmingham. And you guys were telling me that the honor flights also existed here in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was an organized effort to get as many people to Washington, D.C. to see the World War II memorial as possible. Well, I wanted to follow up on that. Hold on, I've got to pull it up here. I just lost my page. But the discussion about World War II centered around how we don't have many of them left anymore. And I know it's not front page headlines, And I know there are other matters that we need to and will get to on the show, but I want to spend a moment to do this because I think it matters. I think that it's important. So, as we discussed Honor Flight, it's a natural consequence of the years going by that Honor Flight kind of closed its doors over the years because they had completed their mission. Every living serviceman and woman out of World War II that had not been to the World War II Memorial to see the honor bestowed upon the greatest generation had been. And if you have fulfilled your service, then you close the books and close the doors. I am noting today that Lou Conter, Conter, has fulfilled his service. He was the final survivor of the USS Arizona. And he passed away at the age of 102 yesterday. Conter was surrounded by family and friends at his home in Grass Valley, California, and passed away peacefully yesterday, according to Joint Base Pearl Harbor and the Pacific Historic Parks. They cited Conter's daughter, Lou Ann Daly. Throughout interviews, a book, and attending services, Conter ensured the public remembered the bombing which blew the battleship 30 to 40 feet out of the water. On the USS Arizona alone, the United States of America lost 1,177 souls. It represented over half the total amount of people killed at Pearl Harbor on one ship alone. The USS Arizona remains at the bottom of Pearl Harbor to this very minute, and it is visited by thousands of individuals on a monthly and annual basis. The veteran, who was a 20-year-old quartermaster, helped rescue fellow crewmen on the morning of December 7th, 1941, which marked the U.S. entry into World War II. Actually, it was the next day when we officially announced our entry. Conter was on the deck of the USS Arizona when a Japanese armor-piercing bomb hit 1 million pounds of gunpowder stored in the ship's hull. As he detailed in his autobiography, The Lou Conter Story, From USS Arizona Survivor to Unsung American Hero, guys were coming out of the fire. We were just grabbing them and laying them down, Conter told KCRA in an interview several years ago. They were real bad. You'd pick them up and, well, they would come off in your hands, he said. The attack lasted about an hour and 15 minutes, killed roughly 2,400 U.S. service members and civilians, along with injuring more than 1,100. It will not make top of headline news, but it's important that we note the passing of Lou Conter, the last surviving member of the USS Arizona, dead at the age of 102. Conter was among 335 Arizona crew members to survive. 335 out of some 1,400 or thereabouts, maybe 1,500. 1,177 perished and only 335 survived. He outlived them all. The second to last survivor was Ken Potts, who died last year in Provo, Utah at the age of 102 as well. Lou Conter, the passing of an era. And I note that I saw that and I thought about our conversation the other day about how we're losing those individuals. Time marches on. Time also heals most, if not all, wounds, and it is natural that it do so. But it's also important that we remember and we never forget our American history. So I asked a question in the first hour, what do the liberals mean when they proclaim that democracy is on the ballot? Well, obviously, from a political perspective, they are attempting to vilify Donald Trump. It's all they've got. Joe Biden, I mean, we know what Joe Biden is. They know what Joe Biden is. The reason they're so afraid of John F. Kennedy Jr. is because John F. Kennedy Jr. at the ripe old age of 70 looks, I mean, downright boyish by comparison. I mean, you know, you could throw Trump in there in the mix, too, and suggest that it is a little bit odd that our youngest presidential candidate of note this election cycle is the ripe old age of 70. By any normal dynamics, he would be retired by now. and I'm on record as saying that we need to skew younger, folks. We don't octogenarians serving the rest of the United States of America, while I am sure that many of them are chock full of wisdom that comes with the age they have achieved, it's not exactly a recipe, a dynamic to service all of the country equitably. I just think we need to get a little bit of younger blood, although I say that, and oftentimes when it's a younger generation serving, it's Bill Clinton. And he did more to get service than service. And then, Barack Obama was fairly young as well. Point being, John F. Kennedy Jr. is a threat to Democrats, therefore a threat to democracy. Why? Because John F. Kennedy Jr. thinks differently than Democrats. And I think that, at its essence, is what they mean when they talk about things being a threat to democracy. It's not, they don't believe, liberals, in my estimation, in my experience, they don't believe in democracy only in as much as you agree with them or that they win. As long as they win, democracy's great. As long as they win, democracy works. As long as they win, they believe in our system of government as they describe it. When they begin losing, suddenly democracy's on the ballot, and everyone beating them at their own game is a threat to democracy in some form or fashion. To which Victor Shi is a Biden delegate, and he's on the X machine. And Victor, is a mover and shaker amongst the Democrat politics. He's a young Gen Z or whatever the hell they call them. He's got a podcast that he hosts, and he was just beside himself that CNN gave RFK Jr. a platform. Writing on the X machine, good grief, CNN just gave RFK Jr. a national platform and threw these easy softball questions at him with no pushback when he answered with lies and conspiracy theories. They should have cut the interview, but they didn't. CNN continues failing its viewers and our democracy. The interview was so disgusting and revolting. At one point, RFK Jr. literally said, not figuratively, he literally said it, that Trump trying to overturn the 2020 election is a threat, but that President Joe Biden is even a greater threat. Are you kidding me? What alternative reality is he living in, wrote she. Invoking his family name multiple times despite his family not supporting him. Well, how are you going to talk about yourself if you don't say Kennedy? She went on to...
You're not allowed to use that name.
Right,
Yeah, it's only mine.
It's my last name. She went on to reflect what I believe most Democrats are thinking right now, and that is, after the first lie and ridiculous claim, the interview should have ended. Instead, he get a national platform to lie. Now, I do not bring this up to highlight Victor Shi. You don't know who Victor Shi is, and nor should you.
Okay, if this needs an explanation, you're not allowed to use the name Murphy.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Got the rules down?
I do.
All right.
I'll try not to. The amount of people responding to him in the affirmative, the amount of people saying, yeah, you tell him. It is an indication to me that they don't want differences of opinion. They have no interest in someone presenting an alternative opinion. You see, leftists like Victor Shi, they don't want any difference of opinion, different worldview, different ideological bent. They want those opinions and those different ideologies and those different worldviews that they describe as lies or misinformation. They want them silenced. And they want them silenced not just on government-run installations or platforms. They want them silenced everywhere. They are essentially in favor of state-run media, these leftist Democrats. I would present to you that the leftist media will allow themselves and would allow themselves to be run and controlled by the state. Because tell me how I'm wrong. If they are suggesting that someone's different worldview, if they're suggesting that Robert F. Kennedy's belief that COVID was used by our government, that it was a setup from China and used by our government in an effort to control us, which it was, they're saying that that belief should be shut down in public discourse. Well, who's going to do the shutting down is my question. You? You? Me? Understand, it would be easy to dismiss this dude because he doesn't matter, but he represents millions of young leftists that believe that they should use the power of the state to shut you down because you think differently than they do, to shut you down because you have a different value structure, a different ideology than they do. That is, by definition, the totalitarianism that they claim to fight against. Simultaneously, they're suggesting to you that democracy dies in darkness. Hello, Washington Post or New York Times or whoever's using that damn phrase nowadays. Or they're suggesting that democracy's on the ballot. While they simultaneously tell you democracy's on the ballot, they want to yank democracy out from under us and demand that our media, the fourth estate, only present their point of view. And I'll finish up with this. RFK Jr. polls at 20%. Many Americans consider him preferable to Joe Biden. And most of Vic's anger, most of the leftist anger toward him is born of a basic disagreement in government and the role of government, or a different focus regarding the facts that we know to be true over the last 5 or 6 years. But they don't care. Facts don't matter. They want control. Another example coming up out of California, plus a weather update on the way. Maybe, I know that Brian Wilson is monitoring. Maybe we'll check in with Brian, see how things are going in Watertown, too. I think that'd be fun as we take a team approach to Super Talk 99.7 WTN's coverage of the possibility of inclement weather moving through. It's 125 on Super Talk. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to tell you a little bit about Paul Winkler, the man that I know, and the company that he runs. So, folks, Paul Winkler believes in honoring his commitment to you as a fiduciary, that he's going to be honest and open with you and take an education-first approach to everything that he does with regard to financial discussions with you, the client. If you listen enough to the talking heads, you're going to hear a lot of conflicting stories, especially in 2024. Should you be looking to hold out on the market right now? Or should you be looking to get in? Should you wait? Should you lock in? Should you look to buy? What happens if Biden wins? What happens if Trump wins? Paul's got all of those answers when it comes to politics and so much more. Now, I am a client of Paul's, and I'm also a sponsor, or rather, I should say, an endorser of Paul's. That means I get paid when I read these endorsements. I get paid when I talk about Paul Winkler and the job that he does. I don't get paid to become a client, and I don't get paid to be a client, and I am a client of Paul's. Why? Because Paul Winkler is the best at what he does in the financial industry. He has 10 separate offices to serve you. There's one nearby. I encourage you to call Paul Winkler today. Start your journey by going to paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. And when you do, tell him Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Paul Winkler. Good friend of the show, Mark Allen Barnett, suggested that we call not Murphy minions, but Murfinistas, which is an absolute man. It's like a party in my mouth, and everyone's invited. Murfinistas. Hip hip hooray. 129 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So the issue involving democracy, I'm going to compare that to what's happening out in California. I read to you from a story. I went local on this because I think you get better intel on the ground when you go local about things like this. Now, I don't pretend that this local source is anything but a liberal local source. It's NBC News out of San Diego. For 35 years, Keith Miller has franchised Subway restaurants in Northern California. In that time, the minimum wage he must, underline must, pay his employees has nearly quintupled. Customers, he said, continue to ask what happened to the $5 footlong, which was a Subway staple when the minimum wage was less than half of what it is now. Yesterday, minimum wage for fast food workers in California jumped to $20 an hour. The statewide minimum wage is $16 an hour, although some municipalities, including San Diego, have slightly higher base pay for workers within city or county boundaries. Miller said you keep kind of wondering when you're going to break the camel's back. And I think that's our fear right now. To me, this is kind of an experiment. We're going to talk about that experiment in just a moment. We'll also, if able, check in with Brian Wilson, see what the weather's doing out there in Watertown. I know he's monitoring the situation. And take your telephone calls and your members' nutrition. Super text at 615-737-9986. It's The Murphy Show on Super Talk. When you head over to membersnutrition.com, you'll see the benefits immediately of some of the incredible product line that Members Nutrition has to offer you, including Daily Defense. We talk about the Youthful Cleanse, which is a complete body cleanse and detox, which assists in removing stored waste and toxins within the body. Going to clean up your liver, going to clean up your colon, and it will help restore health and balance to you. One of the reasons that we talked about that quite often in introducing Members Nutrition, it's often one of the first ways that people get into a healthier lifestyle when it comes to vitamins and supplements. They want to cleanse their body of the toxins that exist in there, and that's a great way of doing that, but it's about so much more than that. They have something for everyone that's looking for an all-natural way to improve their health and their lifestyle, whether it's an anti-aging supplement, whether it's easy for me to say, immune booster, energy supplement, detox, men's health, women's health, relaxation supplements. They have them all, and they have them for less than the big box stores. And thirdly, they're made right here in the good old USA, which means something to me. It's important to me, and I hope that it's important to you as well. So when it comes time to restock your vitamins or your supplements, when it comes time to look for something involving your age or your health or weight management, it's time to get to Members Nutrition. Contact the team through membersnutrition.com. Order right there on the website, membersnutrition.com. I encourage you to do this today, made right here in the good old USA. It's Members Nutrition. Bel K, as I prepare to give a check-in with Brian Wilson in the drive, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to help me understand. I just saw a provision of this law out in California. You know, it's a fast food law involving franchises of, I think, 60 stores or more nationwide. Mm-hmm. And it kind of
not just in California.
Not just in California,
of course.
Right.
That, yeah.
So, but it exempts stores that make their own bread. And there has to be a reason.
Supposedly came about because Newsom is very good friends with the owner of Panera.
I knew that there was some shady, sleazy reason. Is that the reason?
That is what's being said. I mean, the two of them do have a long-standing relationship, and his chain is not affected by this law.
More on that in just a moment. You know, Brian Wilson and I have been in connection throughout the course of the day because our hackles go up in the back of our neck when we hear that there might be some severe weather around. And I just wanted to check in with Mr. Wilson in lovely Watertown. Hello, Brian.
Hey, what's going on, man? We had a little shower that came through pretty quickly. It was breezy, and it's gone. But, I mean, I think the thing we got to remember today is that this is the first round was not the one that we need to pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
It's the second round that they say is coming somewhere, you know, I'd say probably 3 o'clock. It's supposed to really start popping. And so, you know, you may think, well, that wasn't too bad. Okay, well, but that's not the one we're worried about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's don't want people to put their guard down because the storm came through and they got through it and they said, well, okay, now I can move on with the rest of my day. No, the rest of it is still coming, and we need to be on alert.
Having listened to you these several years that I've been in Nashville, I have a great appreciation for how you approach weather because it's very similar to my mindset. I mean, we're all grown. We get it. We understand what weather does and what it can do. At the same time, I feel a very strong obligation to make sure that the folks weaving in and out as they listen during their very busy days are aware of what's going on around them, you know?
I think that's especially true when you're, you know, in the drive times, you know, this afternoon as people start to go home. And by the way, a lot of schools are already out. I mean, a lot of people have gone home early. I looked up, Cabana wife walked through the door. She got off of work early. A lot of people just decided not to risk it today because they've been hearing so much about this. Look, I got to tell you, if you've been doing this for a long time, you get to sense the days where you really need to pay attention. You know, I walk out today and I immediately get that sense. Boy, the air is heavy. And that's not a good feeling. That's not a good thing when you're in the springtime and a cold front is coming through. You can have, in this particular environment, it seems it's pretty ripe for some spin-up tornadoes. So, look, we're in a watch, not a warning. And if you think that the first round was the thing to worry about, let me disabuse you of that notion. It's the second round that most people are concerned about, which is now still developing.
Well, I will be here for you if you need me at all for whatever reason. I'll be here at Super Talk Central. Brian Wilson battening down the hatches at Super Talk East in Watertown, Tennessee. And we'll be here all afternoon long. I just wanted to check in with you, and we'll check in again a little bit later on, find out what else is going on the drive. Thanks, Brian.
All right, sounds good.
All right, man. Brian Wilson is on the scene. He's ready to go in case we need him. I know Ken Weaver feels the same way, Dan Mandis, Chris Hand, everybody at the team. Mac Morey is back at the controls in the news closet, ready to go as well at 2 o'clock. So we got it covered for you with regard to weather. You know, Members Nutrition Super Text line is popping. I love our listening audience, and everybody is confirming what you've already said, that while no one will admit to this, Bell, that Panera Bread was the central reason for the exemption because Newsom is big-time friends with the owner of Panera Bread, and a lot of indication that was the case.
Good to have friends in high places.
I mean, isn't that nice? And it's naked politics, and they don't care. They just don't care. They get naked out in California whenever they want.
Clearly, the workers at Panera don't deserve a living wage.
I mean, what I would like to dig into is what is their stated excuse, right? If we know what the reality, and I admit that I've not covered the story quite closely enough, I'll find out before 3 o'clock because they're not going to come out and say, well, we believe, right? They're not going to admit it. But I guarantee you they figured out a stated reason.
$20 an hour puts an undue burden on the bread.
Well, we feel like if they're making bread, in the common
They're
parlance,
already making bread. They don't need more bread.
right. Back in the 1970s and 80s, that's what we called money, bread. So we feel like, based on that analysis, that they don't need quite nearly as much of it as the other people that are using breads, but those are known as buns. You need to get your bread in the oven and your buns in the bed, as my grandpa used to say. California's new law boosting the minimum wage for fast food workers in the state to $20 an hour went into effect yesterday, impacting restaurants that have at least 60 locations nationwide, except those that make and sell their own bread. I'm reading now from Fox Business. Gavin Newsom signed the legislation, AB 1228, into law last September. In addition to the pay raises, it also establishes a fast food council, including representatives for both workers and employees. Oh, they've unionized fast food restaurants. That's great.
Hey, man, another council, that's going to fix something.
Oh, man, you know what they should have had?
Bureaucracy, that's the way to go, baby.
Oh, I like a good council. You know what I like better than a good council, though, Bell?
What?
Is a task force.
Huh? You can't beat a good task force.
Oh, my
you
goodness
really can't.
gracious. I mean, when you've got a real problem, normally those problems involve crime or something or another when you want to get a good task force on it. You know what's also good? Blue ribbon panel. Now
you can't beat a good task force, though, not even with a blue ribbon panel.
I'd go task force more. I mean, task force, they're armed. Blue ribbon panel, they're snobby. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
They got a bunch of suits on.
Correct call.
Yeah. But we have a council, a fast food council, which represents workers and employees that they say will approve further pay increases and set standards for working conditions. That's nice. So now the voters don't matter and the elected officials don't matter. They've set up a different layer of bureaucracy in order to continue to offer pay increases despite what the businesses themselves might be able to afford or not afford. Just a few details for you before we dive into the meat on the bone here. So the overall minimum wage for workers in California is $15.50 an hour. It is, if not the highest, among the highest of any state in the United States of America. The federal minimum wage continues to be $7.25 an hour. It was last changed in 2009. I don't know of anyone that makes minimum wage. I don't. Now, minus individuals that work in the food service industry that primarily act as waiters or waitresses, I understand that your hourly rate is set lower than minimum wage, consistent with the concept that you will receive far beyond that in tips and other compensation. I'm not saying how much you own. I don't, or how much you make. I don't know anything about that. I make that note because if I don't, anytime that I talk about minimum wage, our friends in the customer service industry, the waiter and waitress in the listening audience will come out and say, hey, wait a minute, I don't make that much money. So I get it. The median fast food worker in the United States of America, this is fascinating to me. The average is $13.43 an hour. And that was in 2022. I would suggest to you that's only gone up. I'm going to call that $13.50 for the sake of rounding off the math. Those in California made an average of $16.60 per hour, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And for those that don't want to do the annual math, Fox Business has done it for us. The new minimum wage in California for fast food employees, you go out, Bell, this is pretty good money. You go out to California and you get you a job at Johnny Rockets or In-N-Out or I guess Subway, although I think Subway used to bake bread on property.
They still do. I don't know if all of them do, but I know a good number of them will.
Well, you get you a gig at McDonald's or Burger King.
What's the definition of make your own bread?
Well, I worked at Subway when I was in college.
And
before I went to Waffle House, and the bread came pre-done, frozen.
uncooked.
Yeah, uncooked.
Yeah. So,
And all you did was cook it.
right. So is that making it, though, since you didn't actually mix the ingredients and create the dough before?
Probably not.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to include Subway.
Well, no, that's competition to Panera.
All right. Can't have that. I mean, once again, what is the excuse there? I don't know it. I don't know. Normally, if I ask a question, they are either rhetorical in nature or I somewhat know the answer on the back end. I'm just doing it as a thought exercise for the audience. I don't know the answer to this question. Like, how do they justify that? Is there not one reporter that would stand before Gavin Newsom and say, hey, you're buddies with Panera Bread, dude. Where did this thing come about? Why is this a carve-out?
Stop asking questions when we're trying to solve poverty. Good Lord, man.
I'm just trying to, in my mind, come up with some Bravo Sierra excuse that they are making about this. Jason writes in, and he's right. The crappy part, and I sanitized to that for the younger ears in the listening audience, the crappy part is that you can't even live off $20 an hour in California.
The awesome part, though, is government's going to get more tax money.
Restaurant owners have warned that the pay increase will lead to job cuts, higher prices for consumers. Multiple California food chains, including Pizza Hut, Southern California Pizza, Round Table Pizza, Vitality Bowls, have already announced layoffs following the passage of the law, while workers and labor unions are celebrating the new law as progress for worker rights, with supporters arguing that many workers in fast food restaurants are not teenagers anymore, working their first job, an image being portrayed by opponents. These are career folk. That's right. Let's make a career. I'm not knocking fast food workers. I'm not. And I have a great appreciation when I'll tell you a story, real story. During the pandemic, well, it was after the pandemic, it was 2022, but it was close enough. I was still driving back and forth between Goodlettsville, where I lived in the Grand Old RV Resort, Convalescence Home, and Bat Meat Market, and Birmingham. And I stopped at a Hardee's somewhere along the way, and I do not make a regular habit to stop at fast food places. As a matter of fact, when I lost my weight, and I've gained some of it back, but when I lost weight, part of the way that I lost weight was committing to not eat anywhere that had a drive-through. That's just a general good rule of thumb. I'm not knocking places that have drive-throughs. I'm just telling you, if you're eating at a place with a drive-through, you're probably not eating as well as you could. That
Unless
was
you're
just
in Kentucky and it's a liquor store.
That's true. We used to go to a place in Florida that was a drive-through. You'd go through those big, doors, and
Yeah.
It was like refrigerated. You would drive up to the platform. Anyway. But on this particular day, I was hungry. I needed something to eat, and I went through the Hardee's, and this woman reminded me of my grandmother. She had to be in her mid-60s. There was a big sign announcing that they would be closing at 2 o'clock every day for the foreseeable future. And I typically, even if I go to a place with a drive-thru, I don't go through the drive-thru, I go in. And I went in, and I see this woman working. She looked down in the back. She looked like she needed to be retired somewhere with her feet up. She did not need to be working. And I asked her, and she said, we can't find anybody to work. She was an assistant manager, and she was run down, and she looked like she was working way, way too hard. And it broke my heart. I left. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know what it was about that particular day and that particular circumstance, but I was thinking about that woman in her life, and I cried for her. I got into my car, and I cried for her because it was wrong. It was wrong that we can't find younger people to work. It's wrong that someone that age has to put in that amount of time. I don't know what her life experience is. Maybe she deserved having to work at 65 years of age, down in the back and down in the hip and hurting on her feet. I don't know. But I don't think that's the case. I think she's doing it because it's what she's always done. I think she's doing it to try to make her own ends meet. And she's taking up the slack where, sadly, sometimes I feel like our younger generation simply isn't. At least that's what I felt at the time. I don't want that woman to make less money. I want her to make more money. I want her to be supported by the people that surround her in her life. This is not anti-fast food worker. It's a reality of the understanding of how business works. And sadly, we have way too many liberals that are too smart for their own good that think that every person that owns a business, every business owner in America, particularly these fast food moguls, they're just swimming in it. I've long said that every liberal thinks that every business owner or every CEO of any corporation goes home, takes all of their clothes off, and like Scrooge McDuck, they jump off of a diving board into a pool full of gold bullion. And they just swim around in their gold bullion, all greedy.
In the franchise model, what do the owners of the franchise live off of?
The money made at the franchise location.
Their location.
That's right.
It is a mini singular business with a brand name attached to it.
They pay Mickey D's. They pay. The parent company gets a cut off the top, and the parent company sells those franchisees everything that they have, from napkins to paperwork.
And you have to buy from them.
And
you agree to this contractually when you buy your franchise.
Yeah, I mean,
but the company is not coming in to save your butt if your business goes bankrupt. It's like, sorry, your franchise didn't work out. Appreciate the help.
More on this in a minute, just to try to educate our youngsters, if we have time. I know we have Senator Marsha Blackburn coming up in just a couple of minutes, too. Maybe she has some thoughts about what the government role in our wages ought to be. It's on the way next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know what I'm inspired to do? I'm inspired to go find that nice woman at Hardee's and take her to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief, because she looked like she could use it. I mean, she did. I mean, she, shuffling around. I mean, back pain's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it can be absolutely debilitating. And I know from personal experience, I don't feel like I'm that old, but I went through some lower back issues recently where I didn't understand what the term sciatica meant until I got it, and then I got it really clearly. I understood exactly what sciatica meant, and I needed pain relief, and I needed it quickly. I did not want to rely on pills. I certainly didn't want to get needles to alleviate pain, and I wasn't considering surgery. I went to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. I had an upper neck compression. They decompressed that with their spinal decompression technology that Dr. Gill brought to Middle Tennessee. And then we went to work on that sciatica and took care of business. I'm as right as can be, playing golf again, enjoying life again the way that I should. Thank you to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Right now at $49, that's your price point. You get in. They'll give you a complete examination. They'll go over where it hurts and why it hurts. They'll get some x-rays. They'll go over those x-rays with you, and then they will develop a plan of attack to eliminate that pain, to attack that pain until it is dead, and without having to rely on needles and pills and surgery. Don't take a pill. Call Dr. Gill and the Dr. Gill Center, 615-882-4838, 882-4838, or go to the Dr. Gill website, or simply stop by in Franklin. Tell them I sent you to Dr. Gill.
2 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. 71 degrees, windy, dreary, gloomy day, and we are monitoring severe storms this afternoon. Tornado watch still in effect in Middle Tennessee. That'll end in an hour, 3 o'clock. Likely to be another watch added to extend for all the daytime hours. And the next rough batch will be from around 3 p.m. till 5. There's not been any major damage in Tennessee as of yet. Some hail, a few downed trees, but the severe threat not over. We'll keep an eye on the southwest as we look for more storms. You got a weather forecast coming up 2 minutes. President Biden has spoken to Chinese President Xi Jinping over the phone today. The White House calling the conversation candid and constructive. More from Selena Wang, who says that China's actions in the South China Sea, fentanyl production, and China's support of Russia and Ukraine were some of the likely topics in the conversation.
This really is more of a check-in for these leaders. They are making good on their promise from that summit last November to really just pick up the phone and talk to each other more. Biden and Xi Jinping both understand that there needs to be communication to prevent any miscommunication from veering into actual conflict, with the issue of Taiwan at the center. That is the biggest flashpoint here. This is a democratically self-ruled island that China has vowed to reunify with.
And they also caught up on climate change and artificial intelligence. New evidence shedding light on the fatal police shooting of a 15-year-old girl who'd been kidnapped by her father in 2022. She was killed as police were in a gun battle with her father at the end of a chase. Alex Stone reports from Southern California.
When 15-year-old Savannah Graziano was killed by police bullets in 2022, the sheriff in San Bernardino County indicated she may have been firing at deputies and ran at them.
Starts to run towards sheriff's deputies.
But new video released under a Public Records Act request shows Graziano was following instructions when she was shot and killed. This deputy had an audio recorder at the end of the chase. It appears she was shot by deputies who had a different view of what was unfolding.
And that is the latest news. Got a weather forecast up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hello there. It is hour number 3 of the Matt Murphy Show. We get it cranked up right now, 2:05 Central Time. We've got weather moving through. The expectation is the nastiest stuff. You know, we had a line that came through about 2.5 hours ago. It produced hail, and I know that it produced hail along I-40 because I was driving in it in advance of getting to work. But we got here safe and sound, and I hope you're safe and sound as well. We'll try to keep you said same with continuous reports all afternoon long on the weather situation. We're under a tornado watch, meaning conditions are favorable. We've not seen any tornado warnings in our listening area thus far. There's rain in our area. The rain picks up in intensity to the south and west of the city of Nashville, but it's moving across the state of Tennessee. And probably if you are listening to me in the state of Tennessee, you're going to get wet before the day is done. We'll keep you up to date on everything going on with the weather on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, both from the host chair and from the newsroom. Right now, we turn our attention to the Murphy Show hotline, where Senator Marsha Blackburn joins us. It is always a wonderful pleasure to get an opportunity to catch up with Marsha and everything that she has going on in Washington, D.C., representing the great state of Tennessee. Senator, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and it's always a pleasure to join you, Matt. Thanks.
It's our pleasure indeed. You were recently down at the southern border, were you not? Weren't you down there a few days ago?
Yes, I was.
Mm-hmm.
I had gone back to Eagle Pass. I'd been down there in January 23, and they were beginning to try to put some containers at the water's edge, and we're looking at putting buoys into the river, the Rio Grande. And I've had legislation called the Container Act, which actually came from the idea of Border Patrol there on the border to allow states and local governments to put up temporary barriers to keep illegal entrants from coming into the country. And this allows them to protect their area. And at Eagle Pass, which was the hot spot a year ago, they have put buoys in the water. They have put containers at the water's edge. They have fencing and razor wire behind those containers. And they have been able to go from a few thousand a day down to 12 a day coming in that area. And, Matt, it shows that walls actually work. That is why so many countries have walls and barriers. And it is so important to note that these local and state governments want to be able to provide the protection for their community and stop this illegal entry. And that's why Texas is spending billions. You've got a lot of those counties that are on the border that are spending millions, and many of the private property owners, the ranchers, the farmers that are down there, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars to protect their land and do the job the federal government has refused to do.
You know, we had the opportunity to speak with Governor Bill Lee yesterday, and he talked about sending members of the Tennessee National Guard down to support Governor Greg Abbott. Obviously, Governor Greg Abbott and some of the other border states and local communities down there are doing everything in their power. Outside of what we are already doing, obviously, we're not getting anywhere with the Biden administration. I think you will agree with me, Senator, that Alejandro Mayorkas has been derelict in his duty, and I am fully supportive of the House effort to impeach him because, sadly, Joe Biden does not see his ineffectiveness as Secretary of Homeland Security. That said, do you think, and while this might seem like a state issue, I want to ask you, and I know you're focused up in Washington, D.C., is there anything else that the state of Tennessee can do in the meantime while we wait for our next election, hopefully to elect Donald Trump, who'll do more about the southern border?
And one of the things that we know makes a difference is for people to report when they see people that have come in or are aware of groups that are coming into communities without notice. Senator Haggerty and I have had a bill now for about 3 years that would require the federal government to notify local and state enforcement agencies when they are going to bring people that are illegally in the country into an area, because they don't do that. And we hear from many of our, we visit with every single county in this state every year. We're in every county. And we hear from local law enforcement, from local elected officials, from directors of schools, that this has a bearing on how they are able to operate. I had one school district that said they had 101 students in the school district that were English as a second language students. And the variety of languages that they were needing ESL teachers for, and they have never had more than a few dozen at any one time. So they were just, it was really difficult for them to first of all find the teachers, and then secondly be able to meet the appropriate funding to care and provide the education for these students. The same thing many times goes with health services in communities where there are not the resources that are available to meet that need. So you've got that impact that comes in, and people are trying to do their best to meet these obligations, but it helps to know when there's going to be someone there, and we're going to keep working our hardest to make certain that the border is closed and that we stop this flow of illegal entry into the country. And Matt, you know, one of the things that gets me is the uptick in the number of gotaways. And this is something that you're seeing at the southern border. These are people that have absolutely no business coming in the country. We don't know who they are, where they're from, what reason they're coming in here. And now you're averaging about 720 gotaways a day. And the numbers continue to climb.
Well, with
frightening.
Well, it is, and we've heard the individual circumstances that this can lead to, and obviously Laken Riley, we all know Laken's name. We speak about her situation because it's emblematic of what's happening all over the United States of America. And I just want to double down, and I don't know that there's a right answer or an easy answer, but are we left to ultimately wait for our election? I mean, we in the state of Tennessee, I feel confident that we're going to do the right thing and elect someone that takes our southern border security seriously. What more can we do in the meantime, if anything, Senator?
Well, sending the National Guard to the border makes a difference, and I applaud the Guard and Governor Lee for doing that, and the General Assembly for funding this effort. The other thing that we have to do is to make certain that we continue with the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas. I think every single American citizen should be incensed if Chuck Schumer tries to table that motion and to not go forward with a trial in the Senate. And it is so important that we take that action and hold him to account. And that, the tougher we can be on the border, the more we talk about it, the more we point it out, the more we back local law enforcement who is finding themselves on the front line of this issue, then the better it is. We need to make certain that when you've got illegal aliens that are coming into your community, that they know if they commit a crime, that ICE is going to be called and they're going to be deported. And I have my bill. I've reintroduced the CLEAR Act. And Matt, that is something I had when I was in the House, and it requires the deportation of criminal illegal aliens. It allows local law enforcement to, when they apprehend somebody who's here illegally that has committed any kind of crime, whether it's a DUI, a robbery, whatever, they can hold them. And then they hold them until they're ready to send them to ICE, and ICE has to deport them within 48 hours. Now, this is the kind of tough-on-crime policies that we need to say so that you don't have more incidences like Laken Riley or like Pierce Corcoran over in Knoxville. And it is important for public safety. And so we're going to continue to push those things because every day I talk to Tennesseans who are just perplexed at why this administration would look at this wide open southern border and say that that is okay, when other countries you have to jump through hoops to get into those countries. And none of them have an open, porous border like we have.
For a few more moments, we have Senator Marsha Blackburn on the line with us on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I want to talk about the election that's upcoming, the presidential election in this way. So we have President Donald Trump, former President Trump, campaigning in Michigan today. And Joe Biden has launched advertising in Michigan regarding the issue of Roe v. Wade, Dobbs v. Jackson, and abortion. And I feel like that the Democrats in some of these swing states are going to try to confuse this matter, confuse this issue, and scare the heck out of 20-something and 30-something-year-old women, particularly, Marcia, in their effort to try to demonize the Republican Party on this issue. And it occurred to me as I was preparing for our conversation today that you might be such a good person to ask, because I know your belief and value system on a personal level. I know that you believe in the Dobbs decision and the way that it happened. I know that you believe and are strongly pro-life. How can we message this moving forward? Because I think the Democrats are going to try to use this as a way to confuse voters and to get them to vote Democrat.
Well, of course they are. And you look at what they're doing with this and the issue of IVF. I'm a big supporter of IVF. I believe in it. I want people to have strong, healthy families, and I want people to be able to bring children into this world. When it comes to the issue of abortion, you know, the Republican Party platform has some good language in it. And it is what I believe in, that you have the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother, and that any restrictions or regulations that are placed on abortion should be handled at the state level, not at the federal level.
And, I mean, is that the simple message that we need to send into more swing states? I think we're right there with you in the state of Tennessee. I'm concerned about places like Michigan and Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and those types of places, particularly as it applies to, you know, for example, the 34, 35-year-old female voter.
Yes, and, you know, Matt, I think that is the message to send. I think it's so interesting that President Biden continues to try to make this the issue that he wants to campaign on, when the American people are saying that wide open southern border, fentanyl in the communities, crime in the streets, Venezuelan gangs, Tren de Agua and other gangs, MS-13, that are coming into this country, gangs that are going into communities that have never had a gang and recruiting kids to be a part of those gangs, inflation, which makes it almost impossible to go to fill up the gas tank and the grocery cart in the same week. Those are issues that are at the top of the heap, and people are wanting to see action on those issues, but that is not what Joe Biden is wanting to talk about.
Finally, Senator, in the couple of minutes that we have left, I am struggling. You know, I have a libertarian streak through me, and we don't have to agree on every singular issue, but I'm curious if you can convince me to your way of thinking with regard to TikTok. I think there are certain things the government should and shouldn't do. I just want more information when we talk about, quote-unquote, national security concerns with regard to what the Chinese are doing through TikTok. I know you're very passionate about this issue, and I know that you're hopeful that the TikTok bill comes back up, and you've been talking about this. Walk me through your very serious concerns about this app.
Yes, and you know, Matt, this is why I think that, and Senator Blumenthal and I have written a letter, and we've been joined by Senator Rubio and Warner in calling for declassifying the information around TikTok so that the American people know what we know.
Good.
What we do know is that TikTok does not keep your data here in the U.S. TikTok exports that data to Beijing, China. Because of China's national security law, and because TikTok is owned by ByteDance, then you have the Chinese Communist Party with access to that data. Therefore, they have the ability to build a virtual you. Now, if you want any indication about how invasive and intrusive TikTok is into everything you have on your phone, every relationship, every keystroke, every app, and the spyware that is embedded algorithmically in TikTok, you need look no further than what they did when that bill came up before the House and then following with the Senate. They have so much data on you and your location that when people logged into TikTok, a prompt came up on the opening page that said, touch here to contact your U.S. House member or your U.S. Senator and tell them do not ban TikTok. Now, that is how specific they can be. This is a platform that is intended to be used for indoctrination and for weaponization, and TikTok proved our point. When you have 1,400 people within just a few days that call the office on this issue directly from having touched that TikTok app, I think that that is something that you should question what their real purpose is.
All right, final question, Senator. Which are you more excited about? You have to pick one. You ready? You have to pick either the eclipse that's coming up or the cicadas that are coming up. Which are you more excited about in the state of Tennessee? The solar eclipse or the cicadas?
The eclipse, because it will be here very briefly and gone, and the cicadas drive me nuts.
Well spoken and good. I agree with you 100% on that. Thank you, Senator, for your time. Always good to catch up. Come see us when you're in town.
Will do. Bye-bye
right.
now.
See you soon. There's Marsha Blackburn taking the hard stand. I think I might have had. I was kind of hoping she'd go with cicadas. And maybe throw something in there like, under Joe Biden's economy, we're going to have to eat them. That was the lob. That was the softball.
People forget we already eat bugs. The FDA allows a certain amount of bug parts in your food.
I like bugs.
Which I'm certain is much lower than it was before the free market took care of that.
You had a cricket? You ever had a cricket?
Oh, of course.
You have worms? You ever had dried maggots? No?
The wording of that just turned me off.
Well, they're out there. They're available. Mealworms.
That's not a maggot. That's different.
It's the same thing, except
it's not the same thing.
It's basically the same thing. You're just eating different things. It's like the difference between somebody fine dining and eating at Mickey D's every day. It's 223 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Attention, gentlemen. Are you feeling run down, sluggish, a lack of energy, motivation, or drive? I've got a solution for you. Now it is easier than ever before. You hear from Evan Bass all the time on the Matt Murphy Show and on Super Talk. And you hear me telling you all the time that Tennessee Men's Clinic is the go-to source for men's health in our community. Since 2014, they've had a location open in Midtown, and now they have their Cool Springs location open. It's been there for about a year or so. Let's tell you what they do. They deal with men-specific health issues. Gentlemen, you need to know your numbers. And if you're feeling run down or sluggish, if you're feeling tired or grumpy, if you've noticed weight gain or loss of muscle mass, and yes, if you've seen a decrease in your sex drive or a decrease in activity in the bedroom, it's time to do something about it at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. It doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. It doesn't take all afternoon or all day. They specialize in men's health. They'll get you in. They'll find out what those numbers are and develop an action plan of success to get you back up with that energy that you want and that you want to experience. Guys, don't chalk it up to middle age or old age. Let's make the call today and schedule that appointment today. 615-208-9090. 208-9090 or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. When you call or when you go to the website, be sure to tell them that Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Tennessee Men's Clinic.
This just in Tennessee, the mayor of Coffee County, Judd Matheny, was found dead in his home overnight in Tennessee. We're still trying to find out more details, and we'll tell you why an arrest warrant was issued for a Texas woman, all at 2:30. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hello, friends. Thank you, McMorey. I don't know the representative that McMorey just mentioned, but I've gotten a number of people that have alerted me to the condolences that need to come out to former Tennessee Representative Judd Matheny, who passed away today. I'm being told that, there are not a lot of details other than his children are asking for privacy. Cause of death unknown at this time. We'll keep you up to date as information becomes available. 228 Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Dave wants to talk about insects in food, and Mike wants to talk about a landfill in Hickman County.
Landfill.
All right, Dave, let's talk about insects. Let's go.
Wow.
Hey, on X, there was a farmer. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Dave.
Okay. There was a farmer that did a video that I saw yesterday, and he was talking about there's certain companies, major companies that make like flour and things like that, and they want to add crickets to the flour as a protein, and their exoskeleton, according to that guy and his sources, like the INH National Institute of Health, can cause reactions in your gut. And see, I have two sons that have Crohn's. That's an autoimmune disease, and if they could put this stuff in the food, then that makes it really concerning to me. Because, if my son eats up, they're going to put him in snack foods and things like that, and if that can cause a reaction in their gut, that could possibly put them in the hospital. And I think that's wrong. I think the FDA, and I've already called my congressman about this, but I think the FDA needs to mandate that any type of insects that are part of the food as an additive needs to be listed. But I would suggest that they ban insects completely from the food, because that's ridiculous. I don't want to eat insects.
I think you'll get a lot of support. Mm-hmm. I think you'll get a lot of support for that position. Mm-hmm. Dave, I hope that you said both of your sons have Crohn's?
Yeah, I've got 4 sons, and two out of 4 have Crohn's.
Well, I wish them the best, and hopefully everything that they eat, hopefully everything you eat, hopefully everything I eat is, for the most part, insect-free. I'd like to announce that I regret my decision, Mac.
Told you.
Although 4931 is reflecting, I think, whatever all of us are feeling right now, when on the Members Nutrition Super Text line, 4931 says, what is happening? Well, what's happening is we're eating bugs, 4931, apparently. By God, we're eating bugs, and the FDA allows it. Now, I've always known, like in your average industrial hot dog making machine, for example, there is an allowable amount of excrement and other things. It's minuscule portions. Let's not suggest that it's anything you're going to be able to taste or whatnot, but there's an allowable amount. There's an allowable amount of certain mold or fungus that's allowed to be present in, for example, ketchup. Trevor says I'm not saying that, Trevor. I almost did, and I didn't. I'm not saying the brand name, but if you go to a certain coffee shop, you're eating bugs. Deal with it. Well, I mean, I've had a dried cricket before. You know what it tasted like?
Chicken.
Dried cricket. More like dried cricket. Mike, I apologize for not going to you first and foremost. Mike, I'll get to you in just a moment. Tony, you too. It's 2:32 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for news.
2:32, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 71 degrees, light rain right now here in Nashville. Got a tornado watch still in effect for the next 30 minutes. Expecting another tornado watch to go into effect after that to extend for the daytime hours. Another batch of that rough weather, 3 till around 5 p.m. We're watching the southwest forecast on the way. This just in Tennessee. The mayor of Coffee County, 53-year-old Judd Matheny, was found dead in his home overnight today. No cause of death has been revealed. He was a former state rep for arrests for areas of Warren and Coffee counties. An arrest warrant issued for a Texas woman. The crime, not paying a library overdue fine. Dave Packer.
Kaylee Morgan was shocked when she was told she couldn't renew her driver's license because there was a warrant for her arrest. Her crime, failing to pay a citation for not returning a library book she checked out last year from the public library in Navasota. Morgan was charged with theft of government property, forced to appear before a judge who Morgan says had little sympathy and smacked her with a $600 fine. Without money to pay, Morgan turned to a GoFundMe campaign to pay the citation. Any extra money will pay for legal expenses.
And what would you think about legally being allowed to ignore any after-hours calls from your boss? There's a new bill in California. Here's Alex Stone.
It's called the right to disconnect, a new bill that would give employees a legal right to ignore calls and text messages from employers after work hours. The bill would mandate that employers clearly outline normal working hours and guarantee uninterrupted personal and family time outside of those hours. It would apply to all public and private employers. Exceptions would include emergencies and scheduling calls.
I didn't know I was breaking the law when I ignored Dan's calls. Well, that's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
So it's not open enrollment right now, and many of you might be under the mistaken conclusion that there's nothing you can do about your health care because it's not an open enrollment. Not so. If you qualify, your health plan man, Pat Davis, and his team can help you get into a better situation. Let's talk about that. When planning health insurance coverage for you and your family, you need an expert. You need someone that understands the business, that understands how to make this happen here in April, not just to wait when open enrollment happens. So if you're not satisfied with your coverage, if you don't currently have health insurance, most certainly you need to call Pat Davis, your health plan man. If you don't have the right coverage for you, if you don't even know what coverage you have, let's make the call that so many others have made. The simplest way to contact your health plan man is go to his website, yourhealthplanman.com. That's right, yourhealthplanman.com. He shops around. He can look at all of the different health insurance companies and find the right plan for you at the lowest price point possible for you. It's as simple as a visit to the website and make the call that so many others have made. Talk to Pat and his team. They'll lay out a strategy of success when it comes to health insurance. It is a minefield. You need someone that knows how to navigate it. Pat Davis and yourhealthplanman.com. Hello, friends. It's Matt Murphy, and allow me a moment to spend talking to you about the Second Amendment and your right to self-defense. And the best way possible to get that done is through the Glock Store. And I invite you to get out and see the Glock Store difference. Man, oh, man. When you see it, you'll know that you're at the best. I mean, it's pretty much as simple as that. I mean, that's the way that it goes. And right now, Glock Store has an open house that's coming, and I want to tell you a little bit about it. That open house is on the way. I just want you to be aware that you're going to have the opportunity to get out at the Glock Store's 4th annual open house happening Saturday, June 1st. Now, I know that seems down the road. Just mark it on your calendar. It's a big time. They give away over $10,000 worth of incredible prizes like red dot optics from Vortex, tritium-powered night sights from True Glow, weapon lights with lasers from Nightstick, pistol and rifle bags from Savior. The raffle list just keeps going and going. I could spend all of my time talking about that. The bottom line is this. Mark it down on your calendar and just know that we'll be along for the ride as well from 10 until 2 on June 1st. In the meantime, get out to the Glock Store and see the Glock Store difference. The retail side of things, ask about the Shoot 270 rooms, no lanes, rooms at shoot270.com, glockstore.com, or better yet, Elm Hill Pike onto Airlane Drive right to the Glock Store. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Glock Store. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, man, oh man. We're fast approaching the 3 o'clock hour. We'll be monitoring the weather. I know that Brian Wilson will be doing the said same. We'll check in with Brian here in just a moment, talk about what else he's got going on the drive this afternoon. A couple of follow-ups to some of the things we were talking about. One, the restaurant carve-outs for I got the bottom line, Bell, on the restaurant carve-outs. So eventually they got called out enough. Panera Bread got called out enough. They announced that they wanted no part of the carve-outs, and so Panera Bread is a part of the restaurants that have to pay the $20 an hour minimum wage.
Oh, man, your best friend tries to help you out and you spit in his face.
Well, apparently it blew back on Governor Gavin Newsom to the point that Greg Flynn, the owner of several Panera Bread locations and a wealthy donor to Governor Gavin Newsom, whose office oversaw negotiations between the fast food industry and labor unions, they were trying to say that Panera wouldn't qualify for the exemption because it does not produce its dough in-house, a stipulation that existed in the bill. Flynn subsequently announced that he would pay his California employees the new wage one way or the other. So, to answer your question, it does not apply to bread items that are not produced in-house. If they are shipped in and just to be baked there, doesn't apply.
So that's their definition of fast food is if you're baking it in-house, you're not a fast food restaurant.
This is what happens when government gets involved in crap that they ought not to be involved in. Let me just read some of this to you. It's unbelievable. So the simplest provision in the law stipulates that chain restaurants with, quote, limited or no table service and more than 60 franchises nationwide will have to pay their employees the new wage, $20 an hour. It further defines qualifying establishments as places that sell food and beverage that are selected and paid for beforehand and meant to be immediately consumed on or off site. That generally covers fast food restaurants such as McDonald's, Wingstop, Chipotle, as well as less traditionally, quote, fast food eateries like ice cream shops or coffee spots. The 60 location requirement means that small chains, as well as mom-and-pop restaurants and high-end eateries, are not subject to the new state law. However, a report from CNBC pointed out that those businesses might have to consider paying their employees more to stay competitive with the fast food restaurants who are now in line to pay $20 an hour. There are, of course, exemptions for restaurants, but the criteria for those exemptions, they can be confusing. Let's talk about some of the carve-outs. There's a carve-out for restaurants that have more than 60 nationwide locations and serve food for, quote, immediate consumption if they operate within another business, such as an airport or a hotel. There's another exemption available to restaurants located inside what the law calls grocery establishments. Basically, any fast food restaurant inside of a large grocery store, like a Safeway, for example, would be exempt. However, the grocery store must also employ the workers within the restaurant versus those staffers being employed by the restaurant or franchisee. Y'all with me so far? Oh, we're not done. Easily the trickiest and most talked about exemption has to do with bread. Restaurants that sell bread as a standalone menu item are exempt from the new wage law so long, listen up now, as the bread was made inside the restaurant and so long as the bread item weighs at least 1/2 of 1 pound after it cools. After it cools. It's very important. That means restaurants that sell muffins, croissants, scones, rolls, or buns as standalone items do not qualify for the exemption unless they also sell bread that weighs at least 1/2 pound after it cools. Very important. For reference points, the online menu at San Francisco's famous Boudin Bakery, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Boudin, lists their sourdough loaf as weighing a solid 1 pound after it cools. The bread rule, one more wrinkle to the bread rule. Restaurants that do sell bread that weighs more than 1/2 pound must use pre-made dough or dough. Okay, restaurants that do sell bread that weighs more than 1/2 pound but use pre-made dough or dough that was made somewhere other than the restaurant do not qualify for an exemption. And then I went over the Panera Bread controversy regarding the exemption. So lawmakers, recognizing that businesses are smart, realized that some restaurants would simply start making their own bread. And so they intentionally inserted in the law that in order to qualify for the bread exemption, the restaurant had to have been making or selling bread as a standalone item by September 15th of last year. That means that you're not going to see the McLoaf on any menus anytime soon.
And politicians wonder why people hate them.
I hate myself for regurgitating this nonsense to the listening audience. I mean, it's horrible. This is what happens when I do all of this to express to you, this is what happens when government gets involved in crap it ought not to be involved in.
If you're making $20 an hour and you're unable to produce more than $25 an hour in revenue or value to that company, you are not going to have a job. That is how simple it is.
Well, and here's the upshot, and here's the reason that I bring it up. Lawmakers don't seem to understand for the life of them how businesses are going to react to the lawmakers demanding that businesses have to add this item, this extra expense line onto their bottom line. They don't live in reality. They have no concept of how the free market operates. For example, liberal from California, a guy by the name of Scott Dworkin, who is co-founder of the Democrat Coalition. $20 minimum wage for fast food workers in California started yesterday. Now CEOs who pocket massive profits are lying about making prices higher and causing layoffs, when in reality they want to keep all of their underpaid staff so they can buy another yacht. Stop being greedy, said Scott. Scott lives in no place called reality.
Scott, I know you're probably not listening, but you're an idiot. You're a bona fide idiot.
Well, but Scott gives us a strong indication as to where all of this is going, guys. Because the businesses aren't reacting the way that they demand the businesses react. The businesses are reacting the way that you would expect the free market to react, and that is that you have to cut the costs of production somewhere in order to make up for the increased price that it's going to cost you to keep employees. Or you have to raise your prices. Those are your options when you have an increased cost added through no fault of your own to the business. Scott
Labor always has been a cost. Always.
But what Scott is going to suggest, and what people like Scott are going to suggest, and I would say to you that this is where all of this is going, I guarantee you, are going to demand that the state of California step in and prevent those price increases. That's where this always goes. When the government tries to control the cost of labor and does not allow the free market to control it itself, when the government tries to manage the cost of production, they always end up managing price controls. And when they do that, you might as well say goodbye to the free market, because what you have is socialism.
And you've already got Elizabeth Warren trying to do this on a national level,
yes,
but not using the cost, but using the quantity instead.
Mm-hmm. That's right. By any means necessary, they will continue to demand that the government oversee the totality of the means of production. And when the government oversees means of production, you can call that fascism, it's a version of it, or you can call it socialism. It's a road to socialism. And that's a road to failure. That's a road to ruin. Ask Argentina. They woke up to it. It's 2:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy, Members Nutrition is on my mind. You hear us talking often about Members Nutrition in reference to the Super Text line, fine sponsors of the Super Text line, even more importantly, of what they do on a day-to-day basis involving you and your health. Jeff at Members Nutrition understood that there are many people that want vitamins, want supplements at a lower price point, and they want them made right here in the USA. And that's their two biggest selling points, right? Those are two really, really good selling points when it comes to vitamins and nutritional supplements that you put in your body. If they're made right here in the good old USA, you can have assurances that they're made with high-quality materials and they're made up to the standards that you would expect for something that you're going to put in your mouth and ultimately consume and help benefit your body and your person. Secondarily, Jeff and his team recognized that, sadly, vitamins and supplements that were made in the good old USA were overpriced in the big box stores, and they did something about it. So whether it's men's health, women's health, specific to energy or relaxation, whatever your need for any vitamin or supplement, they have incredible blends at Members Nutrition. You're invited to check them out at membersnutrition.com. That's membersnutrition.com. And please tell them, if you're able, that Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Members Nutrition. Winding down our portion of the day, at least I certainly hope so. If you hear my voice later on this afternoon, that means the proverbial poop is hitting the fan with regard to weather, and I hope that you don't hear me. You will hear this next voice, Brian Wilson, however. He's here from 3 until 7 o'clock. And Mr. Wilson, I have something to talk to you about. I think I know this from listening to your show, that you are a big fan of the upcoming eclipse. Is that not correct?
Well, I'm interested in those kind of things. I always have been since I was a little kid. And, when we had the 2017 eclipse that the people in Nashville will remember, I wasn't here then, but I drove to Middle Tennessee just to be a witness to it. And it is a remarkable thing. It is my intention, Cabana wife and I are going to drive over to Henderson, Kentucky on that day.
How about that?
Because that's where you get totality. We're going to get about 90% coverage of the sun here in Nashville. So, but it's supposed to be a cloudy day. And at least the long-range forecast says, so that can change. But right now, to get totality, you got to go as far west as Henderson, Kentucky to get Paducah, Henderson, and in the lower part of Indiana. We're all going to have be in that what they call the path of totality.
I don't know if you and Cabana Wife have the time to get this, but have you heard about the moon pie eclipse survival kits?
No, I have not. But if it has to do with the kind of moon pie that you eat, I'm in.
Well, it does. And you can get 2 eclipse glasses and 4 mini moon pies for less than $10, Brian Wilson. I'm here to tell you. There's your news.
Bargain right there at twice the price.
All right, we've wasted our time on eclipses and moon pies, and you'll have to wait to see what Brian's going to talk about starting at about 3:05. At about, 3:05. Brian Wilson coming up next on The Drive after McMurray's newscast. And hopefully you won't hear from me. He's got you covered from a weather perspective all afternoon long. I hope not to talk to you until 12 noon tomorrow. Until then, or sooner rather than later, so long, everybody.